Mexican Border Patrol officer searches Anatoly like a criminal and gets the lesson of his life. The flashlight hit my face like a slap. I didn't flinch. I never do. Behind that beam was a man who thought he had power because he wore a uniform and carried a badge. He didn't know that I'd faced men with real power. Men who could end your life with a word. Men who didn't need a flashlight to make you feel small. Subscribe to the channel if you've ever been judged by your appearance, if you've ever stood in front of someone who thought they knew your story before you even opened your mouth. The desert air was thick that night, heavy with dust and tension. I stood there on the side of that lonely road between nowhere and nothing, hands raised slightly, not in surrender but in patience. The kind of patience you learn when you've waited in breadlines in Siberia. When you've counted the hours until a prison guard might show mercy. This Border Patrol officer, he circled me like a wolf who'd never actually caught anything in his life. His partner stood back, hand resting on his weapon, eyes scanning me like I was a threat assessment from a training manual. "Papers," the first officer said. His accent was thick, his English broken, but his contempt was universal. I reached slowly into my jacket. No sudden movements. I'd learned that lesson years ago in a place where sudden movements got you a rifle butt to the skull. My fingers found my passport, my visa, my documentation. All legal. All proper. I'd crossed borders legally more times than he'd probably checked IDs. But that didn't matter to him. He saw what he wanted to see. A man in old clothes. A face that looked like it had seen weather. Hands that were too rough. A body that was too big. He took my documents and studied them with the intensity of someone pretending to read a language they barely understood. His partner moved closer. I could smell his cologne, something cheap trying to smell expensive. I'd smelled worse. I'd smelled fear and blood and diesel fuel mixed with human sweat in the back of transport trucks. This was nothing. "You look different from your photo," he said, squinting at my passport. "It's an old photo," I replied. My English was clear, better than his, though I kept my accent. No point in hiding where I came from. I wasn't ashamed. "What are you doing in Mexico?" "Visiting. Tourism." He laughed. Actually laughed. Like the idea of me being a tourist was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. His partner joined in, a nervous chuckle that said he wasn't sure what they were laughing at but wanted to fit in. "Tourism," he repeated, making the word sound like an accusation. "You don't look like a tourist. Have you ever been judged by something you can't control? Your face, your body, your past written in the lines around your eyes?" In Uno's instance and Tendra's poor K, I didn't react. Why, I just stood there, breathing slowly, watching these two men perform their little show of authority. "Open your bag," he commanded. I had one bag. One small duffel that held everything I needed. T-shirts, shorts, a book I was reading about philosophy, some protein powder. Nothing illegal. Nothing suspicious. But I knew this wasn't about what was in my bag. This was about control. About power. About a man who felt small in his life trying to feel big by making someone else feel smaller. I set the bag down slowly and unzipped it. He dumped it out. Right there on the dirt. My clothes spilled across the ground, dust coating the fabric I'd washed carefully in a cheap motel sink 2 days ago. The protein powder container rolled. His partner kicked it back toward the pile with his boot. "What's this?" He held up the container like he'd found evidence of a crime. "Protein powder. For training." "Training for what?" "I lift weights." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I saw it. That moment of recognition. Not of who I was, but of what I was. His eyes traced the width of my shoulders under my jacket. The thickness of my forearms. The way my neck didn't really have a separation from my trapezius muscles. I was wearing loose clothing, but some things you can't hide. "You're one of those gym guys," he said, and there was something new in his voice. Not respect. Something closer to resentment. His partner stepped closer. Younger. Maybe mid-20s. He had that look. The look of someone who spent time in a gym, who knew what real muscle looked like versus someone who just looked big because they were fat or tall. He studied me with different eyes. "How much you bench?" the younger one asked. It was such an American question. Such a gym culture question. As if the amount of weight you could push off your chest defined anything about your character or your worth. But I'd learned to speak the language of the iron. It was universal. I don't really max out anymore, I said truthfully. Bad for the joints at my age. At your age. The older officer jumped on that. How old are you? It says in the passport. He looked down again, pretending he'd forgotten, pretending he could read the Cyrillic characters of my birth date without struggling. 56, he said finally. You don't look 56. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment, but it was. He just didn't want to admit it. I could see the wheels turning in his head. 56 years old, and I clearly still had muscle mass, still had presence, still had that thing that made younger men unconsciously straighten up when they stood near me. It bothered him. It threatened something in his worldview. We're going to search you, he said. Properly. I've already shown you everything. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. I looked at his partner. The younger one had that expression. The one that said he knew this was unnecessary but wasn't going to speak up. Wasn't going to challenge his superior. Wasn't going to risk his own position for a stranger on the side of the road. I turned around. Placed my hands on the warm hood of their patrol truck. The metal still held the heat of the day even though night had fallen hours ago. I felt his hands on me. Rough. Aggressive. Patting down my legs, my back, my arms. He lingered on my arms. I could feel him squeezing slightly. Feeling the muscle. Trying to understand how someone my age could still have density like that. What did you do before? He asked. Before tourism. Many things. Like what? I worked. Like everyone works. Doing what? Have you ever had to explain your entire life to someone who wouldn't understand it anyway? Someone who couldn't comprehend the weight of your journey, the roads you'd walked, the things you'd survived? Pronto descubriras la verdad detrás de esto. About why I didn't give him the answers he wanted. I worked in construction. In factories. In gyms. Whatever needed to be done. In Russia. Yes. In Russia. In Ukraine. In other places. You ran away? I almost smiled at that. Ran away. As if leaving hell was running away. As if choosing to survive was cowardice. I left, I said simply. When it was time to leave. He finished his search. Stepped back. Found nothing because there was nothing to find. I turned around slowly. Looked at both of them. The older officer was breathing slightly harder. Frustrated. The younger one looked almost embarrassed. You can go, the older officer said finally. I didn't move immediately. I bent down slowly, gathered my clothes from the dirt, shook them out one by one, folded them carefully, placed them back in my bag. The protein powder container. The book. Everything back in its place. They watched me. Neither offered to help. Neither apologized. I didn't expect them to. I zipped the bag. Stood up. Looked at the older officer directly. Can I ask you something? I said. He looked surprised that I would speak. What? Why did you stop me? Random check. We do random checks. There were 3 other cars before me. You didn't stop them. Those were different. How? He didn't answer. We both knew how. Those cars had looked different. The people inside had looked different. They had looked like they belonged. Like they had money. Like they had power. I looked like work. Like dirt. Like poverty. Like someone who could be pushed around because who would care about someone like me? Can I tell you a story? I asked. We don't have time for stories. It's a short story. About respect. The younger officer shifted his weight. I could tell he was curious despite himself. The older one crossed his arms. Defensive. But he didn't walk away. When I was young, I began. Younger than him, I nodded toward the partner. I worked in a factory in Chelyabinsk. You know Chelyabinsk. They didn't. Doesn't matter. Cold place. Industrial. We made parts for machines. I was small then. Skinny. Weak. There was a foreman. Big man. He liked to push people around. Especially the young ones. Especially me. One day he pushed me too hard. Literally. Shoved me into a metal rack. Cut my face open. I touched my cheek where a faint scar still lived. I didn't fight back. Want to know why? Neither answered, but they were listening. Because fighting back would have gotten me fired. Would have gotten me arrested. Would have meant my mother didn't eat that week. So I took it. I cleaned up my blood. I went back to work. And you know what I did instead? What? The younger officer asked quietly. I got stronger. Every day. Every night after my shift, I found ways to train. Heavy rocks. Scrap metal. My own body weight. Took me 2 years. 2 years of getting stronger while he got older and softer and more comfortable. And one day, he tried to push me again. Same move. But this time I didn't move. He pushed and I was like a wall. And he felt it. He felt the difference. And something changed in his eyes. Fear. Respect. Same thing sometimes. I paused, let that sink in. He never pushed me again. Never raised his voice to me again. Because he understood finally that strength isn't about making other people feel weak. It's about making yourself unbreakable. The desert was quiet around us. Somewhere in the distance, a truck rumbled past on the highway. The older officer uncrossed his arms. Why are you telling us this? He asked, but his voice was different now. Quieter. Because you searched me tonight looking for something to prove I was less than you. And you found nothing. And now you feel something you didn't expect to feel. What's that? The younger one asked. Curiosity. About how someone who looks like me, who comes from where I come from, who has nothing you can see, still carries himself like he has everything. I picked up my bag. Slung it over my shoulder. The answer is simple, I said. I know who I am. I know what I've survived. I know what I can do. And I don't need a badge or a gun or authority over strangers on a dark road to feel like a man. I started to walk away. Back toward the small town where I was staying. It was 3 miles. I didn't mind walking. I'd walked further. Wait, the younger officer called out. I stopped. Turned. He jogged over to me. Reached into his pocket. Pulled out a business card. There's a gym in town. Good gym. Owner's a friend. Tell him Marco sent you. He'll give you a day pass. Free. I took the card. Looked at it. Looked at him. Thank you, Marco. He nodded. Looked like he wanted to say something else. Looked back at his partner, who was watching with an unreadable expression. Marco didn't say anything more. Just nodded again and walked back to the truck. I continued walking. Behind me, I heard their engine start. They drove past me slowly. Didn't stop. Didn't offer a ride. But through the window, I saw Marco raise his hand slightly. A small wave. An acknowledgement. Something. The gym was called Iron Temple. I found it the next morning. It was in a warehouse district, sandwiched between an auto repair shop and a place that sold restaurant equipment. The sign was hand-painted. The windows were tinted dark. I could hear the music from outside. Old-school metal. Black Sabbath. Iron Man. How appropriate. Inside, it was exactly what I expected and exactly what I needed. No mirrors except one small one in the corner. No chrome. No fancy machines. Just iron. Bars. Plates. Benches worn smooth by years of pressing bodies. Racks that had held thousands of pounds. Chalk dust in the air like incense in a church. There were maybe 10 people training. All serious. No one on phones. No one taking selfies. Just work. I loved it immediately. The owner was a man named Hector. 60-something. Built like a fire hydrant. He saw me come in, saw the card I held up, nodded once. Marco called, he said. Said you might come. Said you're strong. Marco is kind. Marco doesn't lie. Not about iron. Hector handed me a waiver to sign. I filled it out. He glanced at it. Saw my name. Saw my age. Raised his eyebrows. 56. Yes. You look good for 56. I try. What do you lift? Whatever is heavy. He smiled at that. Actually smiled. I like you already. The weights are free. The attitude is mandatory. Don't drop weights unless you're dying. Don't give advice unless someone asks. Don't curl in the squat rack. I would never. Then we'll get along fine. I changed in the bathroom. Put on my training clothes. Old shorts. Old shirt. Both had seen better days but still held together. Like me. I walked onto the training floor and everything else fell away. The border patrol. The search. The disrespect. All of it gone. Because this was my church. This was my meditation. This was where I was most myself. I started with a warm-up. Light weight. Just moving. Getting blood into the muscles. Feeling out my body. At 56, you don't just jump into heavy training. You have to negotiate with your joints. Have to ask your tendons politely if they're ready to work. Have to remind your central nervous system what you're about to demand from it. There was a younger guy training near me. Maybe 30. Big. Strong-looking. He was benching. I watched his form between my sets. It was good. Tight. Controlled. He noticed me watching. You want to work in? He asked. What are you lifting? 315 for reps. 315 pounds. 4 repetitions. He was strong. I'll wait, I said. Don't want to change all your plates. He finished his set. Sat up. Breathing hard. Looked at me. How much you bench? That question again. Always that question. As if the bench press was the measure of a man. As if horizontal pushing strength defined your worth in the universe. I don't know, I said honestly. I haven't maxed out in years. But when you did? Maybe 450. Maybe more. Long time ago. His eyes widened. Bullshit. I shrugged. Believe what you want. Prove it. I told you. I don't max out anymore. Bad for the shoulders at my age. Then rep 315 with me. I looked at the bar. 315 pounds. I'd warmed up with 135. Jumped to 225 for a few sets. 315 was a decent jump. But I felt good. The gym energy was good. The music was good. Why not? Okay, I said. He looked surprised that I agreed. Maybe he expected me to make excuses. To back down. To admit that my strength was in the past. He didn't know that my strength was in my discipline. My consistency. My refusal to quit training just because I got older. He added the plates while I chalked my hands. The bar bent slightly under the weight. Beautiful. I slid onto the bench. Positioned myself. Feet flat. Back tight. Shoulder blades retracted. Hands on the bar. The knurling bit into my palms. I loved that feeling. That connection between flesh and iron. You want a spot? He asked. Yes. But don't touch the bar unless I'm dying. Got it. I unracked the weight. Held it. Felt the tension through my entire body. This wasn't just arms. This was legs driving into the ground. Core tight. Lats engaged. Everything working together. I lowered the bar. Controlled. Touched my chest. Pause. Pressed. The weight moved smoothly. First rep. I did 10 reps. Clean. Controlled. No grinding. No struggle. Just work. I racked the weight. Sat up. The guy was staring at me. Holy shit, he said. Others had stopped to watch. Including Hector. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, small smile on his face. How? The young guy asked. How are you that strong? How do you explain a lifetime of training to someone who's only been lifting for maybe 10 years? How do you compress decades of discipline, consistency, suffering, recovery, learning, failing, adapting, persisting into a simple answer? I never stopped, I said. That's the secret. I never stopped. But you're old. I didn't mean. It's okay. I am old. But old doesn't mean weak. Old doesn't mean finished. Old just means I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Have you ever watched someone's entire perspective shift in real time? Have you ever seen the moment when someone realizes that everything they thought they knew was incomplete? Within the next few moments, you'll understand why this moment mattered. Not just for him. For me too. Over the next hour, a small crowd gathered. Not to watch me specifically. But word had spread. The old guy. Repping 315 like it was a warm-up. By the time I moved to squats, there were at least 15 people in the gym, and most of them were aware of me. I loaded 4 plates. 405 pounds. I stepped under the bar. Unracked it. The weight settled onto my back like an old friend. Heavy but familiar. I descended. Deep. Ass to grass. Pause. Drove up. The weight moved. Second rep. Third. Fifth. 8. 10. I racked it. Stepped back. Rolled my shoulders. Jesus Christ, someone muttered. Hector walked over. You compete? He asked. Long time ago. Different life. You should compete now. Masters division. You'd destroy them. I don't compete anymore. I just train. Why? Because I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I did that already. For too many years. Now I train because I love it. Because it keeps me sane. Because when everything else in life is chaos, the iron is honest. He understood. I could see it in his eyes. He'd been there too. He'd competed. He'd chased numbers. He'd measured himself against others. And somewhere along the way, he'd learned the same lesson I had. That the real competition is with yourself. With who you were yesterday. With the voice in your head that says you can't. After training, I showered. Changed back into my street clothes. When I came out, there were 3 guys waiting. Young guys. Early 20s. They looked nervous. Can we ask you something? One of them said. Of course. How do we get strong like you? Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. You start, I said. You start and you don't stop. You train when you're tired. You train when you're sore. You train when you don't want to. You train through breakups and job losses and family problems. You train through injuries by working around them. You train through doubt and fear and the voice that says it's not worth it. You make training non-negotiable. Like breathing. Like eating. You just do it. Every week. Every month. Every year. 4 decades. And one day you wake up and you're strong. Not because of one workout. Not because of one program. But because of 10,000 workouts. Because of consistency. Because you refused to quit. They were quiet. Processing. That's it? One asked. That's everything, I said. I left the gym. Walked back toward my motel. The sun was setting. The desert sky was orange and purple. Beautiful. I thought about the border patrol officers. About Marco giving me that card. About the young guys in the gym looking at me like I had answers. I didn't have answers. I just had experience. I had scars. I had calluses. I had a body that had been broken and rebuilt so many times I'd lost count. I had a mind that had been pushed to the edge and pulled back. I had a heart that had been hardened by life and softened by iron. That night, I sat in my motel room. There was a knock on the door. I opened it carefully. It was Marco. Still in his uniform. Off duty now, but still wearing it. Can I talk to you? He asked. Come in. He stepped inside. Looked around the small room. The single bed. The small TV. The window that looked out at the parking lot. He seemed uncomfortable. I wanted to apologize, he said. For last night. For my partner. For how we treated you. You didn't treat me badly, I said. Your partner did. You just didn't stop him. He flinched. You're right. I should have said something. Why didn't you? Because he's my superior. Because I need this job. Because I have a family. Because... He trailed off. Because it was easier to stay quiet. Yes. I nodded. I understand. I've been there. Many times. We all have. The question is what you do next time. Next time I'll speak up. Will you? He met my eyes. I don't know. But I want to be the kind of man who would. Then start, I said. Start practicing being that man. In small ways first, then bigger ways, until it becomes who you are. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I went to the gym today. Hector told me what you did. What you lifted. I couldn't believe it. Why not? Because you don't look like... you look strong, but you're older and you were just wearing normal clothes last night and I thought... You thought I was nobody. I thought you were just another migrant. Just another person trying to cross. Just another problem to deal with. And now I realize I don't know anything about anyone just by looking at them. Have you ever been the lesson someone needed to learn? Have you ever been the mirror that showed someone their own prejudice, their own assumptions, their own limitations? En los próximos minutos verás cómo this conversation changed both of us. Can I ask you something personal? Marco said. You can ask. I may not answer. Why do you train so hard? At your age you could relax. Enjoy life. You've clearly been through enough. I sat down on the bed. Gestured for him to take the chair. He sat. When I was younger, I began, I had nothing. No money. No power. No connections. All I had was my body. My willingness to work. My ability to endure. So I made my body into something that couldn't be ignored. Something that demanded respect. Something that proved I was worth more than people assumed. And now I have more. Not much, but more. I could stop training. But if I stop, I lose the thing that made me who I am. I lose the discipline that carried me through everything. I lose the connection to the young man who refused to stay weak. And if I lose that, what do I have left? You'd still be you. Would I? We are what we do repeatedly. If I stop doing the thing that defines me, do I stop being myself? He thought about that. I used to train, he said quietly. In high school. I was good. Strong. Had college offers for football. Then I got injured. Stopped training. Stopped caring. Gained weight. Lost muscle. Lost myself in some ways. It's not too late. I'm 32. I'm 56. You think you're too old? You have 24 years on me. You have so much time. The question is whether you have the will. I don't know if I do. Then find out. Tomorrow. Go to Hector's gym. Start. See what happens. See who you become. Maybe you train for a month and quit. Maybe you train for a year. Maybe you train for the rest of your life and it changes everything. You won't know until you start. He stood up. Extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm. Respectful. Thank you, he said. For the lesson. For not being angry. For being, I don't know, more than I expected. We're all more than people expect, I said. That's the tragedy. People see surfaces. They don't see depths. They don't see the oceans inside us. The storms we've weathered. The shipwrecks we've survived. They just see what we look like on a Tuesday night on the side of the road. He left. I sat there in the quiet. Outside, the neon sign of the motel flickered. Vacancy. Always vacancy. I thought about that word. The empty spaces. The rooms waiting to be filled. The potential in emptiness. The next morning, I went back to the gym. Marco was there. In workout clothes. Looking nervous. Hector saw him. Saw me. Smiled. Friend of yours? Hector asked. Maybe, I said. We'll see. I worked with Marco that day. Taught him basic movements. How to squat properly. How to deadlift without destroying his back. How to press with his whole body, not just his arms. He was weak from years of neglect. But he was coachable. He listened. He tried. He failed and tried again. By the end of the session, he was drenched in sweat. Exhausted. But there was something in his eyes. Something that hadn't been there before. A spark. Possibility. How do you feel? I asked. Like I'm going to die. Good. That means you worked. Tomorrow you'll be sore. The next day worse. Then better. Then stronger. That's how it works. Will you be here tomorrow? I'm leaving tomorrow. Back to the States. Oh. He looked disappointed. But Hector will be here. And those guys. I pointed to the young guys from yesterday. And you will be here. The iron will be here. You don't need me. You just need to show up. I don't know if I can do this alone. You won't be alone. Every person in this gym is fighting the same fight. Against weakness. Against quit. Against the voice that says it's easier to stay soft. You're surrounded by allies. You just have to recognize them. I trained for another hour. Then I packed my stuff. Said goodbye to Hector. He hugged me. Strong hug. The kind men who understand iron give each other. You're always welcome here, he said. Thank you. And if you ever want to compete again, let me know. I know people. I could get you into a meet. Masters division. You'd win. I don't need to win anymore. What do you need? I thought about that. I need to keep being the man I built myself into. That's enough. He nodded. Understood. I walked out of the gym. Marco was sitting on the curb outside, still in his workout clothes, drinking water from a gallon jug. I thought you left, I said. I needed air. And I wanted to say goodbye properly. Goodbye, Marco. Wait. Can I ask you one more thing? What? Last night, when my partner searched you, why didn't you fight back? You could have. You're strong enough. You could have made him stop. And then what? I get arrested. Deported. Maybe shot. Because a man with power felt disrespected. Is that strength? Using force to solve everything. Then what is strength? Have you ever had to define the thing that defines you? Have you ever had to put into words what you've spent a lifetime learning in your bones? Pronto descubriras la verdad detrás de esto. About what real strength means. Strength is enduring without breaking, I said. Strength is being able to destroy but choosing not to. Strength is carrying weight that would crush others and making it look easy not because it is easy but because you refuse to show how hard it is. Strength is getting up every day and choosing to be better when the world gives you every reason to be bitter. Strength is being treated like nothing and still knowing you're something. That's strength. Everything else is just muscle. Marco stood up. I'll remember that. Good. Remember it when you're tired. Remember it when the weight feels too heavy. Remember it when you want to quit. Remember that some old Russian guy told you that you're stronger than you think you are. And then prove him right. I walked away, headed to the bus station. The bus that would take me back across the border. Back to the States. Back to whatever came next. As I sat on that bus, watching the desert roll past, I thought about the last 48 hours. About being treated like a criminal. About being searched like I was dangerous. About the assumptions. The disrespect. The casual cruelty of people who had small power and used it in small ways. And I thought about what came after. The gym. The training. The connection. Marco finding something he'd lost. Those young guys seeing that age doesn't mean weakness. Hector recognizing a kindred spirit. I didn't change the world. I just existed in it honestly. I just showed up as myself. Flawed. Scarred. Strong. Tired. Determined. Human. And somehow that was enough to shift something. To plant a seed. To remind people that we're all more than we appear to be. The bus crossed the border. Different guards this time. They barely looked at my documents. Waved us through. On one side of an imaginary line, I was a suspect. On the other side, I was just another passenger. How strange. How arbitrary. How meaningless these borders we draw. Between countries. Between people. Between who we think we are and who we actually are. I arrived back in El Paso late that night. Found a cheap hotel. Collapsed into bed. My body was tired. Not from the training. From the weight of being seen and not seen. Known and unknown. Respected and disrespected. All in the span of 2 days. But I'd carried it. Like I'd carried everything else. Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. I carry the weight. Not because I want to. Not because I have to. But because I can. And because somewhere someone is watching. Someone is learning. Someone is realizing that if that old guy can carry it, maybe they can too. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it. Started training today. You were right. I'm sore. I'm tired. I'm already thinking about quitting. But I'm also thinking about showing up tomorrow. Thank you, Marco. I smiled. Type back. Good. Keep going. The iron is patient. It will wait for you. But you have to meet it halfway. 3 dots appeared. Then, I will. I put the phone down, closed my eyes, and in that darkness I saw myself. Not as the border patrol saw me. Not as the gym saw me. Not as anyone else saw me. I saw myself as I actually was. A man who had survived. Who had built himself from nothing. Who had refused to stay broken. Who carried his strength quietly until the moment it was needed. Who understood that power without wisdom is just violence. Who knew that muscle without character is just meat. I was 56 years old. I had lived through cold that could kill. Hunger that could drive you mad. Systems that tried to crush you. People who wanted to keep you small. And I was still here. Still strong. Still training. Still growing. Still learning. Still becoming. And that was the real lesson. Not for Marco. Not for those young guys in the gym. For me. The reminder that I needed. That no matter how many times people try to make you feel small, you don't have to accept that. You can stand tall. You can be strong. You can demand respect through your actions, your character, your refusal to quit. You can be searched like a criminal and walk away like a king. Because what they do to you doesn't define you. How you respond does. Who you become does. The weight you carry and how you carry it does. I fell asleep thinking about that. About borders and barriers. About strength and weakness. About prejudice and possibility. About the strange journey that had brought me from Siberia to a motel room in Texas. About all the roads I'd walked. All the weight I'd lifted. All the versions of myself I'd buried and rebuilt. And I thought about tomorrow. When I'd wake up. And train. And carry the weight. And be strong. And be kind. And be myself. Because that's what I do. That's who I am. That's who I've always been. Through everything. Despite everything. A man who lifts. Who endures. Who survives. Who teaches through example. Who proves that strength is more than muscle. That character is more than appearance. That worth is more than what strangers assume when they see you on the side of the road. I am Anatoly. And I am unbreakable. Not because nothing has tried to break me, but because everything has tried and failed. And I'll wake up tomorrow and do it all again. Lift the weight. Carry the burden. Be the example. Show the way. Not for glory. Not for recognition. Not for anything except the knowledge that this is who I am. This is what I do. This is the man I built myself into. One rep at a time. One day at a time. One moment of choosing strength over surrender. The lesson the Border Patrol officer learned wasn't about my bench press. It wasn't about my squat. It wasn't about my age or my physique. It was about the fact that you cannot judge a book by its cover. You cannot measure a man by his clothes. You cannot understand someone's worth by their appearance or their accent or the wear on their shoes. You have to look deeper. You have to see the person, the story, the journey, the strength that comes not from weights but from weathering, the power that comes not from authority but from authenticity, the dignity that comes not from what you have but from who you are. And maybe, just maybe, when you see that in someone else, you start to see it in yourself. You start to question your own assumptions, your own prejudices, your own limitations. You start to realize that the borders we draw are mostly illusions, that the divisions we create are mostly fear, that the judgments we make are mostly projections of our own insecurities. And you start to change. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But slowly. One workout at a time. One act of humility at a time. One moment of recognizing your own weakness and choosing to grow stronger. That's what happened to Marco. That's what I hope happens to everyone who hears this story. Not that they become like me, but that they become more fully themselves. that they find their own strength, that they build their own character, that they lift their own weight and discover what they're truly capable of. Because we're all stronger than we think. We're all more resilient than we believe. We're all capable of more than we imagine. We just have to start. We just have to show up. We just have to refuse to quit. Day after day, week after week, year after year, until one day we look in the mirror and we see someone we respect. Someone we're proud of. Someone who earned their strength through suffering and sacrifice and showing up when it would have been easier to stay home. That's the lesson. That's the truth. That's what I learned in the cold gyms of Russia and carried with me through every border, every checkpoint, every moment when someone looked at me and saw nothing. I am not nothing. You are not nothing. We are the sum of our struggles and our refusals to surrender. We are the weight we've carried and the scars we've earned. We are stronger than we look and more than we seem and worthy of respect not because of what we have but because of what we've overcome. So lift, train, endure, become. And when someone tries to make you feel small, stand tall. Not with arrogance, not with violence, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth, who has tested themselves, who has pushed through pain and found power on the other side. Be unbreakable. Be undeniable. Be yourself. That's the lesson of my life. That's what I want you to take from this story. That's what I hope Marco remembers every time he walks into that gym. We are more than they think. Always. I spent the next few days in El Paso, training at a small gym I'd found near the hotel. It wasn't like Hector's place. This one had mirrors everywhere, new equipment, people taking videos of themselves. But iron is iron. Weight is weight. And I needed to train. On the third day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello. Is this Anatoly? A woman's voice. Young. Nervous. Yes. Who is this? My name is Rosa. I'm Marco's wife. He gave me your number. I hope that's okay. It's okay. Is Marco all right? He's fine. Better than fine, actually. That's why I'm calling. He's been going to the gym every day since he met you. Every single day. He comes home exhausted but happy. He talks about you. About what you taught him. About strength and discipline and becoming better. That's good, I said, unsure where this was going. It is good. But I wanted to thank you personally. You see, Marco, he's been lost for a long time. Since his injury. Since he gave up football. He's been angry. At himself. At the world. Me sometimes. He took this job because he needed work, but it made him harder. Made him see people as problems instead of humans. Made him forget who he used to be. I listened. Said nothing. Let her continue. But these last few days, I've seen something change. He's softer with our kids. More patient. He apologized to me for things from years ago. He said he's trying to become the kind of man who speaks up when things are wrong. The kind of man who sees people. Really sees them. That's all him, I said. I just trained with him for one day. No. You showed him something. You were someone he judged and dismissed, and then you turned out to be more than he could imagine. You could have been angry. You could have made him feel small. But instead you helped him. Why? Why? Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. Because I've been where he is, I said. Lost. Angry. Using whatever small power I had to feel bigger. And someone helped me once. Showed me a different way. I'm just passing it forward. Who helped you? And there it was. The question that took me back. Way back. To a place I don't often let myself remember. To a time when I was the one searching people. When I was the one with the small power. When I was the one who needed to learn. His name was Dmitri, I said quietly. And if you have time, I'll tell you about him. Because maybe Marco needs to hear this story too. I have time, Rosa said. And I'm recording this, if that's okay. I want Marco to hear it exactly as you tell it. That's fine. I sat down on the bed. Closed my eyes. Let myself go back. Back to 1991. Back to the Soviet Union in its final days. Back to when I was 21 years old and wearing a different kind of uniform. I was in the army, I began. Mandatory service. Everyone served. You had no choice. I was stationed near the Finnish border. Cold. Remote. Nothing to do but stand at checkpoints and search people trying to cross. Trying to leave. I paused. The memories were sharp. Like they'd happened yesterday instead of 35 years ago. I was angry back then. Angry at everything. My father had died the year before. Drunk. Frozen to death in the snow walking home from a bar. My mother was alone. I'd wanted to stay and help her, but the army took me anyway. So I was angry. And I took it out on the people I was supposed to be protecting. I made their lives harder. I searched them roughly. I threw their belongings around. I made them wait in the cold. Because if I was suffering, why shouldn't they suffer too? Rosa was quiet on the other end, listening. One night, an old man came through. Maybe 70 years old. Poorly dressed. Carrying one small bag. He had papers to cross into Finland. Legal papers. Everything proper. But I was in a mood. I'd gotten a letter from my mother that day. She was sick. Needed medicine. Had no money. And I had no money to send her. So I took it out on this old man. I stopped. Had to take a breath. Had to steady myself. I made him empty his bag. Made him stand in the snow. Searched him like he was a criminal. Found nothing because there was nothing to find. But I kept searching. Kept making him wait. Kept asserting my tiny bit of power over someone who had none. What happened? Rosa asked softly. He didn't complain. Didn't argue. Just stood there. Patient. Waiting. And when I finally let him go, you know what he did? What? He thanked me. Actually thanked me. For doing my job. For keeping the border safe. For serving my country. And then he asked me if I was okay. I felt my throat tighten. Even now. Even after all these years. I was so shocked I didn't know what to say. This man I just humiliated was asking if I was okay. And I broke. Just completely broke. Started crying right there at the checkpoint. Told him everything. About my father. My mother. My anger. My helplessness. Everything. And what did he do? He put his hand on my shoulder. And he said something I've never forgotten. He said, "Young man, you have a choice. You can let your pain make you cruel. Or you can let it make you kind. You can use your power to hurt people. Or you can use it to help them. You can become like your circumstances. Or you can become despite them. But you have to choose. Every day. Every moment. You have to choose." The hotel room was silent except for my breathing and Rosa's breathing on the other end of the line. "What did you say to him?" she asked. I asked him how. How do you choose kindness when everything is cruel? How do you help people when you can barely help yourself? And you know what he told me? What? He said, "You start small. You let the next person through without making them suffer. You speak gently instead of harshly. You see them as human instead of as a problem. And you do that again tomorrow. And the day after. Until it becomes who you are instead of what you're forcing yourself to do." Have you ever had someone change your entire trajectory with a few sentences? Have you ever met someone for 5 minutes who altered the course of your life? Within the next few moments, you'll understand why that encounter shaped everything that came after. Did you ever see him again? Rosa asked. No. He crossed the border. I never even knew his name. I just called him Dmitri in my mind because he looked like a Dmitri. But I thought about him every day. Every single day for the next 35 years. Whenever I was angry. Whenever I wanted to be cruel. Whenever I had a choice between making someone's life harder or easier. I thought about him. About his hand on my shoulder. About his kindness to someone who'd shown him none. And that's why you helped Marco. That's why I help everyone I can. That's why I train people who ask. That's why I share what I know. That's why I don't get angry when someone treats me badly. Because Dmitri showed me that kindness is stronger than cruelty. That helping people is more powerful than hurting them. That who we choose to become matters more than what we've been through. Rosa was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. I'm going to play this for Marco tonight, she said. He needs to hear this. Thank you. Thank you for being kind to him when you could have been angry. Thank you for being his Dimitri. We said goodbye. I sat there for a long time after the call ended, thinking about Dimitri, about the checkpoint, about the cold, about who I was then and who I became, about the long road from there to here. That night, I couldn't sleep. Too many memories, too many ghosts. So I got dressed and went for a walk. El Paso at 3 in the morning. Empty streets. Distant lights. The border wall visible in the distance. That same arbitrary line. Separating people who were essentially the same. Making some legal and others illegal. Some worthy and others suspect. Based on nothing but geography and paperwork. I walked for hours. And somewhere around 5 in the morning, I found myself at the border crossing. Not the one where Marco had stopped me. A different one. But similar. Guards. Checkpoints. Cameras. The whole apparatus of control. I stood there watching the early morning traffic. People crossing to work. To see family. To live their lives across that imaginary line. And I saw a young guard. Maybe 22. He looked tired. Frustrated. He was searching an older woman roughly. Making her empty her purse. Scattering her things. And I saw myself. 35 years ago. At a different border. Being cruel because I was in pain. Using my small power in small ways. Making someone else's life harder because mine was hard. I walked over. Slowly. The guard saw me. Tensed up. Can I help you? He said. Defensive. Aggressive. No, I said. But maybe I can help you. I don't need help. Everyone needs help, I said. I just want to ask you one question. What? Are you okay? He looked at me like I was crazy. What? Are you okay? You look tired. Frustrated. Angry. I'm asking if you're okay. His expression changed. Confusion. Suspicion. Then something else. Something vulnerable. I'm fine, he said, but his voice cracked slightly. I was a soldier once, I said. At a checkpoint. Like you. And I was not fine. I was angry. At everything. And I took it out on people who didn't deserve it. Just like you're doing with her. I nodded toward the older woman who was gathering her things. She could be smuggling. She's not. You know she's not. You're just making her life harder because you can. Because it makes you feel powerful. Because your life is hard and this is the only place where you have control. He didn't deny it. Just stared at me. Let me tell you something someone told me a long time ago, I said. You have a choice. Every day. Every moment. You can let your pain make you cruel. Or you can let it make you kind. You can use your power to hurt people. Or you can use it to help them. You can become like your circumstances. Or you can become despite them. The older woman had finished gathering her things. She was watching us. Waiting. I don't understand, the guard said. You will, I said. Someday you'll be on the other side. Someday someone will have power over you. And you'll remember this moment. And you'll understand. But why wait? Why not choose now to be the kind of person you'd want to meet if you were the one being searched? I turned to the woman. I apologize for him, I said in Spanish. He's young. He's learning. She nodded. Smiled sadly. Crossed the border. The guard stood there. Looking at his hands. At the checkpoint. At me. Who are you? He asked. Nobody, I said. Just someone who was you once. And someone helped me. And now I'm helping you. That's how it works. We help each other. We lift each other up. We choose kindness even when the world doesn't deserve it. I walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to see if he understood. Didn't need to know if it made a difference. I'd planted the seed. Just like Dimitri had planted one in me. Just like I'd planted one in Marco. That's all we can do. Plant seeds. Water them with kindness. and hope they grow. I walked back to the hotel as the sun came up. The sky was orange and pink. Beautiful. A new day. A new chance. A new opportunity to choose who we become. When I got back to my room, there was a message from Marco. A long message. Rosa played me your recording. About Dimitri. About the checkpoint. About choosing kindness. I can't stop crying. I've been that angry young soldier. I've been cruel because I was in pain. I've used my small power in small ways to hurt people. But I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be someone's Dimitri. I want to be the person who changes someone's trajectory. I want to choose kindness. Thank you for showing me how. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for seeing who I could become instead of just who I was. I'll never forget you. I sat on the bed. Read it 3 times. And I felt something I don't often feel. Pride. Not in myself. In Marco. In his willingness to change. In his courage to admit his flaws. In his decision to become better. This is how the world changes. Not through grand gestures. Not through revolutions. But through individual choices. Through people deciding to be kinder. To be stronger. To be better. One person at a time. One interaction at a time. One moment of choosing light over darkness. The next day, I left El Paso. Headed west. No particular destination. Just moving. Like I always do. Like I've done for years. Since I left Russia. Since I started this long journey of becoming. But I carried something with me. A renewed sense of purpose. A reminder of why I do what I do. Why I train. Why I help. Why I share. Why I exist the way I exist. Because I am Dimitri for someone. Just like Dimitri was for me. Just like someone was for Dimitri. An infinite chain of kindness stretching back through time and forward into the future. Each of us lifting the next. Each of us choosing to help instead of hurt. To build instead of destroy. To encourage instead of diminish. That's the real strength. Not the weight we lift, but the people we lift up. Not the pounds we press, but the hope we inspire. Not the muscle we build, but the character we forge in ourselves and others. 2 weeks later, I was in Arizona, training at another gym. Another town. Another temporary home. My phone buzzed. A photo from Marco. Him in the gym. Squatting. Form looked good. He'd lost some weight. Gained some muscle. But more than that, he looked different. Lighter. Happier. More alive. The text said, 3 weeks consistent. Haven't missed a day. Not just training my body. Training my character. Thank you, brother. Brother. He called me brother. This man who'd searched me like a criminal 3 weeks ago. Now calling me brother. Because iron does that. Struggle does that. Choosing to become better does that. It breaks down the barriers. The borders. The divisions. And it reminds us we're all the same. All human. All struggling. All capable of more. I sent back. Proud of you. Keep going. Not just in the gym. In life. Choose kindness. Be someone's Dimitri. I will. I promise. And I believed him. Because I'd seen the change in his eyes. In the gym that day. In the way he listened. In the way he tried. In the way he showed up despite being sore and tired and uncomfortable. That's the mark of someone who's serious. Someone who's committed. Someone who's choosing to become. Do you know what the hardest part of change is? It's not the first day. The first day is easy. You're motivated. Excited. Full of energy. The hard part is day 7. Day 14. Day 30. When the novelty is gone. When your body hurts. When you're tired. When life gets in the way. That's when you find out who you really are. That's when you discover if you're serious or if you were just playing. Marco would face that test. Soon. Within the next month. Life would get busy. Work would get stressful. His kids would get sick. He'd have a bad day. And he'd have to choose. Gym or couch. Growth or comfort. Becoming or staying. And I hoped he'd choose right. But even if he didn't, Even if he quit, the seed was planted. The lesson was learned. The possibility was revealed. And someday, when he was ready, he could start again. Because it's never too late. I started seriously training at 26. Some people start at 40, 50, 60. Age is just a number. What matters is the decision, the commitment, the refusal to accept weakness as permanent. I trained hard that day. Deadlifts. Heavy. 500 pounds for reps. An old man in the corner of a gym in Arizona. Nobody watching. Nobody caring. Just me and the iron. Having our conversation. The iron asking, "Are you strong enough?" Me answering, "Let's find out." Pull. Strain. Lift. The weight comes off the floor. Slowly. Fighting gravity. Fighting age. Fighting everything that says I should be weaker. Should be slower. Should be less. But I'm not. Because I choose not to be. 5 reps. 6. 7. I could do more, but I don't need to. Not trying to prove anything. Just maintaining. Just showing up. Just refusing to quit. I racked the weight. Sat down. Drank water. Looked around the gym. Young people everywhere. Training. Growing. Becoming. And I was happy for them. Happy they found this path early. Happy they didn't have to wait until their 20s or 30s or 40s to discover what their bodies could do. But I was also happy for my journey. For the late start. For the struggles. For the pain that made me appreciate the strength. For the weakness that made me value the growth. For everything that shaped me into who I am. Because easy victories mean nothing. Quick success teaches nothing. It's the long road that builds character. The hard path that reveals who you really are. The struggle that shows you what you're made of. And I'm made of iron. Forged in cold. Tempered by time. Shaped by suffering. Strengthened by showing up. Day after day. Year after year. Decade after decade. That night, I got a message from Rosa again. "I wanted you to know something. Marco went back to work yesterday. There was a situation. An immigrant family at the checkpoint. Kids crying. Parents scared. Marco's partner wanted to search them aggressively. Make an example. But Marco stopped him. Said they'd do it properly. With respect. With kindness. He helped calm the kids down. Spoke gently to the parents. Did his job but did it humanely. His partner was angry. Called him soft. But Marco didn't care. He said he was choosing to be the kind of man his children could be proud of. I think you should know. You changed him. Really changed him." I stared at that message for a long time. And I felt something deep in my chest. Not pride. Something else. Gratitude, maybe. That my suffering hadn't been meaningless. That my journey had purpose. That the pain I'd endured had become the wisdom I could share. That the cruelty I'd experienced had taught me the value of kindness. This is what Dmitri gave me. This is what I gave Marco. This is what Marco would give to someone else. An infinite chain. A legacy not of blood but of choice. Of deciding to be better. Of refusing to let pain make us cruel. Of using our power to help instead of hurt. I typed back, "Thank you for telling me. Tell Marco I'm proud of him. Tell him that being called soft by hard men is a compliment. Tell him that real strength is choosing kindness when cruelty would be easier. Tell him he's becoming his own Dmitri now. And that's the highest achievement." The weeks passed. I kept moving. New cities. New gyms. New people. But I carried Marco's story with me. Told it sometimes. When I saw someone struggling. When I met someone angry. When I encountered someone using their small power in small ways. I'd tell them about the border patrol officer who searched me like a criminal and learned that strength isn't about dominance. It's about dignity. It's about choosing who you become regardless of your circumstances. Some people listened. Some didn't. Some changed. Some stayed the same. But I planted the seeds anyway. Because that's all we can do. We can't force growth. We can't make people change. We can only show them what's possible. Share what we've learned. Be living proof that becoming better is always an option. 3 months after I left El Paso, I got a package. Forwarded through several addresses before it found me. Inside was a letter and a photo. The photo showed Marco, Rosa, their 2 kids, all of them at the gym. Marco was teaching his son how to squat. Rosa was on a treadmill. Their daughter was doing jumping jacks. A family. Training together. Growing together. Becoming together. The letter said, Anatoly, I don't know if this will reach you. I don't even know where you are. But I needed to write this. Needed you to know what you started. I've been training for 3 months straight now. Lost 30 pounds. Gained it back in muscle. But more than that, I've changed how I do my job. How I treat people. How I see the world. I speak up now when things are wrong. I choose kindness even when it's hard. I'm becoming the man I want my children to see. The man my wife deserves. The man I should have been all along. And it started with you. With your patience. Your strength. Your willingness to help someone who'd treated you badly. You were my Dimitri. And now I'm trying to be someone else's. I've helped 4 people start training. I've stopped my partner from being unnecessarily cruel 7 times. I've apologized to people I was harsh with in the past. I'm not perfect. I still fail. I still get angry. But I'm trying. Every day. I'm choosing to be better. And it's because of you. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. But thank you. For seeing who I could become. For helping me get there. For being living proof that it's never too late to change. My family thanks you too. Rosa says you saved our marriage. My kids say you're the strong grandpa they never met. We think about you often. We wonder where you are. What you're doing. If you're okay. And we hope that wherever you are, you know that you made a difference. You changed lives. You mattered. With gratitude and respect, Marco. I read that letter 5 times. And then I did something I rarely do. I cried. Not sad tears. Not happy tears. Something else. Tears of meaning. Of purpose. Of knowing that my existence had value. That my pain had produced something beautiful. That my journey had helped someone else with theirs. This is why we train. Not for the muscle. Not for the strength. Not for the looks or the numbers or the competition. We train because it teaches us who we are. Who we can become. What we're capable of. And then we take those lessons and we share them. We lift others up. We pass it forward. We become someone's Dimitri. Have you found your Dimitri yet? Have you been someone's Dimitri? In the moments to come, you'll understand why this matters more than anything else we do. I kept that letter. Kept that photo. Carried them with me. And whenever I felt tired. Whenever I wondered why I kept training at my age. Whenever I questioned if any of this mattered. I'd look at that photo. Read that letter. Remember that my strength wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone I'd helped. Everyone I'd inspired. Everyone whose life I'd touched. Years pass differently when you're older. Time moves faster. Days blur together. But the meaningful moments stand out. Shine brighter. Last longer. It's been 2 years now since that night on the border. Since Marco searched me. Since I walked into Hector's gym. Since I planted a seed in a man who was lost. I still train. Every day. My body is older now. 58. The weights haven't gotten lighter. If anything, they feel heavier. My joints protest more. My recovery takes longer. But I show up anyway. Because this is who I am. This is what I do. I got a message last month. From Marco. A video. Him competing in a powerlifting meet. Masters division. He totaled 1,300 pounds. Squat, bench, deadlift combined. Not world class. But respectable. Strong. More importantly, he looked happy. Alive. Present. His family was there cheering. Rosa filming. His kids holding a sign that said, "That's my dad." After the competition, he looked at the camera and said, "This is for Anatoly. Wherever you are. Thank you for showing me the way. For being strong enough to be kind. For teaching me that real power is choosing who you become. I hope I'm making you proud. You are, Marco. You absolutely are. But more than that, you're making yourself proud. You're becoming your own man. Your own version of strong. Your own kind of powerful. And that's all anyone can ask for. That's all Dmitri asked of me. That's all I ask of anyone I help. Just become. Just choose. Just show up. Just refuse to let your circumstances define you. Just decide that pain won't make you cruel. That power won't make you a bully. That strength will make you kind. I'm still moving. Still training. Still helping when I can. Still being Dmitri for people who need one. Still planting seeds and hoping some of them grow. I don't know how much longer I can do this. The body ages. Eventually it fails. Eventually the iron wins. But not today. Not yet. Today I'm still strong. Still capable. Still here. Still showing up. Still proving that age is just a number. That strength is a choice. That becoming better is always possible. And when I can't train anymore, when the body finally gives out, when the iron finally defeats me, I'll have this. These stories. These lives I've touched. These seeds I've planted. These people I've helped become better versions of themselves. That's my legacy. Not the weight I lifted. Not the muscle I built. Not the years I trained. But the lives I changed. The kindness I showed. The choice I made, over and over, to be someone's Dmitri. Because that's what Dmitri taught me. That's what I taught Marco. That's what Marco will teach his children and the people he helps. That we're all connected. All responsible for each other. All capable of changing someone's life with a moment of kindness. A word of encouragement. A choice to help instead of hurt. This is the lesson the Border Patrol officer learned. This is the truth that set him free. This is the strength that changed everything. You cannot judge a person by their appearance. You cannot measure worth by circumstance. You cannot know someone's story just by looking at them. You have to see deeper. Look closer. Choose kindness. Choose respect. Choose to recognize the humanity in everyone. And when you do, when you make that choice, you don't just change them. You change yourself. You become better. Stronger. More human. More real. More alive. That's what happened to Marco. That's what Dmitri gave to me. That's what I try to give to everyone I meet. A chance. A choice. A moment of kindness in a cruel world. A reminder that we're all struggling. All growing. All becoming. And that the only way through is together. Helping each other. Lifting each other up. Choosing light over darkness. I'm Anatoly. I'm 58 years old. I've lived a long, hard life. I've been searched like a criminal. Treated like nothing. Dismissed and disrespected and judged by people who didn't know my story. But I'm still here. Still strong. Still training. Still kind. Still choosing to be someone's Dmitri. Still proving that how we respond to cruelty matters more than the cruelty itself. That who we become defines us more than what we've been through. And I'll keep going. Keep lifting. Keep helping. Keep planting seeds. Until the day comes when I can't anymore. And then I'll rest. Knowing I did what I could. Helped who I could. Made a difference where I could. Because in the end, that's all that matters. Not what we lifted, but who we lifted up. Not how strong we were, but how much strength we gave to others. Not our own journey, but the journeys we helped others begin. That's the lesson. That's the truth. That's what I learned on a dark road in Mexico when a Border Patrol officer searched me like a criminal and got the lesson of his life. We are all teachers. We are all students. We are all Dmitri and the angry young soldier at the same time. Learning and teaching. Growing and helping others grow. Becoming and helping others become. This is strength. This is power. This is what matters. Everything else is just weight.